A hump mold lets a potter shape clay by draping it over the top of a convex, hump-shaped item. If the mold is shaped concave, so clay sinks inside it, we call that a slump mold. In the museum school's hand-building room, we have shelves of hump and slump molds. They're made of various materials. For some of these materials, you'll need to put a release agent between the mold and your clay to discourage cracking and warping, because clay, when it's wet, is sticky, and it sticks to some materials much more than to others. We have molds that are made of plaster, fired clay, bisque-fired clay, glass, plastic, metal, wood, and a few that are made of insulating foam. Because clay is wet, essentially you're putting some water on the mold material when you lay clay onto it. Wet clay is sticky, so the longer the material stays wet, the longer the clay is going to be sticky and stick to it. Look how fast the bisque clay dries out. It's just sucking that water in. It's porous, so the water is being drawn out of the clay that you lay in the mold when you use a bisque mold. Plaster also pulls water out of the clay. So you don't need to use a release agent when you're using a plaster or a bisque mold. In fact, the release agents can mess up the mold. But now check out the metal. The water is still there. So your clay will stay wet. The part of the clay that's touching these non-porous molds will remain wet. Meanwhile, the top surface that's exposed to the air will be drying out. On the non-porous molds, a release agent is going to allow you to take that clay off of the mold as it begins to get stiff enough to hold its shape. Also, the release agent will help prevent the clay from grabbing onto the mold and being bent as the top shrinks in as it dries. Most of the time we can use cornstarch or WD-40 and in some cases strips of newspaper as release agents. Foam is a bit of a special case because of the shape of the molds that we use, and clay does dry a little bit faster on foam than it does on some of the non-porous molds, but it's still a good idea to use a little bit of cornstarch on a foam mold.